constant watch over credit cards can save you thousands. So says the author of Credit Card and Debt Management. We'll be talking about this on Community Close Up. We'll be talking about credit card and debt management with Scott Bilker, and he is the author of this book, which sells for $19.95, and we'll have a telephone number a couple times. And if you tell him you watch the show, you'll get it without handling costs. Bankruptcies.
Well, 1996 saw over 1 million bankruptcies, and 1997 is going to top that also. Bankruptcy is a definite problem. In fact, there was a survey in USA Today in June, and people who claimed bankruptcy, 63% of them cited credit card debt as the #1 reason why they went under, second to job loss.
This does not, you claim, have to be. You're scrupulous. You do anything to avoid interest pay.
Absolutely, especially because there's so many options available to you. As long as you pay on time and keep your eye out for money-saving opportunities, you can save a lot of money. There's no reason to pay the average interest rate on credit cards, which today is around 18%.
You're suggesting that we shop for the cards and look for the lowest rates, and that they are there?
Yes, they're definitely there. You have to be as meticulous in choosing your loan options as you are in choosing your products when you buy things. You have to make sure that you're getting the best deal for your money. The nice thing about buying money in loans is that all money is the same. It doesn't matter which bank you go to. All that matters really is which loan is the least expensive.
Well, are there certain banks that have very low interest? And how do you find out which ones they are if they're not local?
Well, usually in local newspapers like Sunday, in the money section, they list some of the low-rate credit cards. But your strategy should always be to read your monthly statement carefully. Sometimes those low-rate offers are going to end, and the rate's going to go up very high.
Oh, I know how they're going to end. They offer you, they seduce you, they mail it to you, they promise you next to nothing in interest charges, and that's true, but for a limited period of time. And if you succumb, everything's fine for a while, and then...
Right, and then they raise your rate from 5.9 to 22%, and if you're not careful, you're going to pay back a loan. For example, if you charged $5,000 at 19.8% and paid the minimum payment, it would take 50 years to pay that back and cost $24,000 when you're done.
It is so easy to use a credit card, and you feel virtuous almost. You're not carrying any money, so nobody can steal from you.
Right. Well, that is also an advantage. I mean, I'd rather carry one credit card than a lot of cash.
The word is one credit card. We don't need more than one credit card?
No, you don't really need more than one credit card to carry. But interestingly enough, if you have a lot of debt, say on multiple credit cards, you're going to need other lines of credit to get good deals. If you have only 2 lines of credit, let's say, and they're both at 18%, you have no one else to turn to, so you're going to need other loan options.
All right, tell us how to do it. We open up a savings account from the very beginning at a bank.
From the very beginning? Well, to establish credit, you need to have...
Establish credit.
Well, you can get a gasoline card or a department store card.
They're the easiest to get.
Very easy. They're right out there. You know, from the Christmas season, you walk by the store, they're out there with free gifts. All you have to do is fill out an application, and most likely you're going to get that. And once you get your card, use it wisely. Make some purchases, pay them off on time, and then you will instantly go into the database in which the major credit card banks solicit you for the big credit cards, the MasterCard,
so you got to
Visa.
be very careful with those transactions. Don't fool around, because it's going to haunt you.
Oh yeah, it's going to haunt you, especially if you're late. That's the biggest sin you could commit with your credit cards, any of them, is being late with your payments. Even if you have to borrow money to make your payments on time, it would be in your best interest to do so.
But that's to establish credit, so that you can go out and get it. They feel you're a good risk.
Right.
But don't they love it when you're late? Look at all the money they make off of you. They don't make anything off of you because you're paying it right on time. What's the advantage to them?
Of people that pay on time?
Yeah.
Well, there's no advantage to them. In fact, nowadays, if people that pay off their bills all at once every month are getting penalized by being forced to pay annual fees.
All right. Well, you have to pay that annual fee, don't you?
Not necessarily. If you get an annual fee on your credit card statement, give them a call and tell them that you don't want to pay that annual fee and that you have plenty of other credit cards to use.
All right. Fight for your rights, and they'll probably back off. They don't want to lose you.
I tell you, I call every time, and there's only been one case where they wouldn't waive the annual fee and I closed the credit card account. All the other ones take about 2 seconds to decide to waive that fee.
Is there a feeling that, okay, we'll waive it, sooner or later this guy's going to be paying us in interest? He's not always going to be able to be this prompt in his payment. It's worth the risk. Is that the reasoning behind it?
Well, they're still making money. Whenever you use your credit card, the merchant pays a percentage to the bank.
Right, that's right.
And they are getting some interest charges from you if you carry a balance.
Yeah, but they're greedy. They're not getting as much as they'd like. They'd like to sock you with 18%.
Yes, they would. They don't want you to be late, but they'd love to hit you for 18% and have you not be aware that the rate is that high. I have to believe to some degree that's why the statement's a little difficult to read sometimes. If you ever try to look for your rate, they have it broken down into the monthly rate, the purchase rate. It's a little hard to find.
You're buying a car and you'd like to be able to, well, pay it all in cash. Well, not too many people can do that, right?
Yes.
All right. What about a credit card? Do you advise the use of a credit card?
To buy a car, yeah, there are certain instances where you might want to consider that. There's definitely some reasons why. First of all, the rate may be lower than a rate you can get on a car loan. Also, it's an unsecured loan, so in case you did have some kind of problem, your car wouldn't be repossessed. Also, you can choose how much you pay. You could pay the minimum payment 1 month if you didn't have enough money. There's no waiting to be approved for the loan. So there are some advantages, but the main thing to remember is that only if it's less expensive do you go with the credit card. Say you have a credit card offer that's 3.9%, $5,000 for 6 months. You can use that to buy your car, and after 6 months you can still go to a bank and say, I'd like to finance my car, can you give me a loan to pay off this credit card? And you can do it at that time. So you're not locked into that rate change when it jumps from, say, 3.9 to 15 or 18. So you want to use the low rate as long as possible, saving the most money.
This booklet, and it's got it all. I want to tell our viewers, and it's very, I wouldn't say it's easy. It's demanding. You got to pay attention, but then again, your point is you got to be meticulous. You got to line everything up. You got to know what you have. You got to live within this. I mean, you're even preparing with all the little things that you have to have at your right hand to make it work. Everything is in this credit card and debt management book. So what is it that is driving so many people into bankruptcy more than ever before?
Well, I think with credit cards, there's 500 million major credit cards available. That's almost twice as many credit cards as people. In fact, just major credit cards, the average household has 4.2 major credit cards with at least $4,000 of credit charges on them. Plus, each family has around $13,000 in available credit. And I think that's the key, is that there's so much money available and easy to spend. You know, it's right there. You can just go out and get whatever you want. And there's no stigma attached to it. 20 years ago, people didn't like to borrow money to pay things off with. It didn't feel right at the time. Nowadays, it's accepted. People even feel rich when they pull out a platinum card and buy something.
Yeah, there's a lot of snob appeal.
Yes.
With that gold, with the platinum, whatever. Do you advise, you don't advise having just one card. What if something happens and you really have an emergency? You want to have something else, don't you?
Right, you definitely want to have
another card, one other card.
It's okay to have as many cards as you like, but you can't max them out.
No, they're also temptation.
As long as you put them in what I call a credit card graveyard. It's a little file I have that has all my credit cards that have zero balances that I don't use. I use them enough to keep them active. Like once a year, I'll look down my list of the last time I used them, and I might go buy one thing and pay it off, so that they know it's active enough to send me offers. But then other than that, it just stays in the file just in case I need the money. But I don't use it. I mean, if I charged everything on all my cards, I'd be bankrupt pretty fast because I don't have the ability to pay it back. But the idea is to have a lot of available money just in case the loans that you might have outstanding start charging you a lot. You need places to turn to. You need other banks to bargain with. But you can't abuse that by going out and buying a Porsche on your credit cards.
The idea of getting credit cards and establishing credit was very interesting, how you open a savings account and how you get that money. And then you take... Pardon me, I've got a cold. Explain that.
Okay, well, you got to have a savings account and a checking account. There's some certain minimum criteria banks are going to look at when evaluating your credit worthiness. Your ability to pay on time is the major one, along with how much money you earn. But if you don't have a checking account, it's going to be hard to pay them. So they want to make sure you have a checking account and a savings account.
So we open them. We open them with what, $1,000?
Sure, whatever you have, whatever you can have. In fact, I've heard now, a friend of mine told me the other day that she was turned down for a savings account because of her credit record. It's the first time I've heard of something like this. But credit scoring, which is where they look at your credit history and determine your credit worthiness, is being used in a lot of other areas now too. Even healthcare providers are starting to use your credit history to determine whether to bill you at the front desk when you're at the hospital or to send you a bill in the mail. So it's very important that when you use your credit cards that you take care to watch them and make sure they are paid on time.
Why would anybody open a savings account in a bank? You get no interest worth anything. It's going to be taxed. They don't even want it. The banks aren't interested in stuff like that. They want loans. They want money from you. You can't even get a U.S. savings bond in a bank anymore. That's the great patriotism of the big banks.
Well, it's good to have the savings account just as something to put down in your credit application. You have the savings account.
You have the one savings account.
Right. It doesn't have to have a lot of money in it, but it has to exist. So that way, if they call the bank to see what your history has been with your savings account, it looks good. Also, with your checking account, they might try to see if you bounce checks.
All right, but then you want to get another card. So what do? You take some money from that.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. You can start to get a secured credit card by taking your money, applying for a secured credit card, and with a secured credit card, you're getting a MasterCard, but the collateral is the money in the savings account. So you might put $500 in or $1,000 in, and they'll give you a MasterCard. Of course, they're still going to check your credit history, but it's secured by the money. Now what you could do if you want to get another secured card is cash advance money from your credit card and open another, go to another bank and apply for another secured credit card. Now you have two cards.
You do it a third time.
You could do it a third time, but you only need to do it a few times to establish some credit. This is if you had credit problems and you want to reestablish your credit. You get a couple major credit cards like that with secured cards, and then you use them wisely. You don't overspend, you buy and pay it off, and then after a while you'll get some solicitations for low-rate loans from other banks for unsecured cards.
What happens if you go into bankruptcy? How do you manage your credit after that?
Well,
what can you do?
See, I wrote the book to help people out before they need a lawyer.
I know, it's debt management.
I want people to, take a fresh look at their finances before they actually need a lawyer and go into bankruptcy. But when you go into bankruptcy, then all your possessions might be at risk.
Well, they can't take the house.
You can't take the house unless you have a lot of equity in it. If you owned it outright, then it would depend what state you're in, whether they might sell it and try to pay off your debts.
Well, you're saying don't fool around. There are lots of little, whatever.
Yeah, you still have a lot of power. If you're having some trouble with an account, maybe you need some more time to pay it off, or you need to work out a better deal. If you call the bank and tell them that you're having trouble, and that
that's if it isn't too outrageous a loan, and the chances are the loan was, the outstanding money is in a credit card. That's what you've got, and you know that you can't pay it off.
Right.
But if you did what you should be doing, and you looked at Credit Card and Debt Management by Scott Bilker, it's smart, it's got everything you need to know. You're going to save yourself from all kinds of aggravation and trouble. It's all lined up. It is easy to read. There are a million angles, and they're all for real. You won't have any trouble with it, except that you will probably not have any trouble with credit or with debts. Thank you so much for being with us, Scott.
Well, thank you for inviting me onto your show, Dorie.
And we'd like very much to hear from you. Won't you drop a line to Community Close Up in care of WB 17, 50th and Winfield in Philadelphia.